What's up, Taiwan? Good morning. I'm Ethan Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Tributes for slain reporter Shireen Abu Akleh continue to pour in from around the world. The United Nations is calling for an independent probe into the death of the veteran Al Jazeera journalist. She was killed covering an Israeli raid in the West Bank. Her official funeral was held Thursday at the Palestinian presidency headquarters. Al Jazeera has called the death of the Palestinian-American reporter, quote, blatant murder, and says it holds the Israeli government responsible. James Chater reports.
Draped in the Palestinian flag, the body of Shireen Abu Akleh is carried through the streets of Ramallah in the Palestinian territories. The longtime Al Jazeera journalist killed covering the story she dedicated her life to.
وخبر فاجع هي صدمة لا يمكن استيعابها حتى الآن. شيرين الزميلة الصحفية المهنية الراقية تتلقى هذه الرصاصات المتعمدة من قبل الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. هي بدمائها سطرت رسالة يجب أن تكون رسالة جادة ووقفة جادة من جميع الجهات المختصة بالعالم لحماية الصحفي الفلسطيني.
51-year-old Abu Akleh was killed covering an Israeli raid on the city of Jenin in the northern West Bank. Shot in the head, despite wearing a vest identifying her as a journalist. A Palestinian Christian, Abu Akleh was a household name in the Palestinian community, having spent more than 2 decades covering the Palestinian conflict with Israel. In Jerusalem, where Abu Akleh was born, her death has sparked widespread protest. Palestinian authorities have said the killing is an Israeli assassination and are calling for an international investigation.
We don't want to get into the details, but we want international to mean that we reject the claims of Israel that they can do a credible investigation. They are the criminals, and the criminals cannot investigate themselves.
But Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said the exact reason for Abu Akleh's death had not yet been determined and alleged that Palestinians may be responsible.
על פי הנתונים הראשוניים שבידינו, ישנו סיכוי לא מבוטל שהעיתונאית נפגעה בכלל מירי הפלסטינים החמושים. אך על מנת להגיע לחקר האמת, אנחנו צריכים לקיים חקירה אמיתית. והפלסטינים בשלב הזה מונעים את זה.
The US representative to the UN also called for an independent investigation into Abu Akleh's death, who also held American citizenship.
Our highest priority is the protection of American citizens and the protection of journalists. It is so important that journalists be allowed to do their jobs without fear. And so our message, again, is let's get to the bottom of this. Let's ensure this never happens again.
For those Abu Akleh leaves behind, grief and frustration. And on the beaches of Gaza, a sand sculpture outlining her name. A fleeting memorial, but a testament that the journalist's legacy will not soon be forgotten. Damon Lin and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
To find out more about the situation for journalists in the Palestinian territories, our reporter James Chater spoke to international news correspondent Nicole Johnston. She was with Al Jazeera for more than 10 years and spent a year in Gaza covering the region. She's a former colleague of Shireen Abu Akleh.
Well, clearly she was a legend at Al Jazeera and a legend in the region. She'd been living and working in the West Bank. She was from Jerusalem. She lived and breathed the story. She was a dedicated journalist. So this, of course, has come as, a huge shock, not only to Al Jazeera colleagues and former colleagues like myself, but sort of that entire fraternity of journalists who work in the Middle East or who've been in the region.
And we've seen really remarkable pictures coming out of the West Bank in the aftermath of her death. Hundreds of Palestinians gathered outside Al Jazeera's bureau there. Can you explain a little bit about, why Shireen was such a well-respected and revered figure amongst Palestinians themselves?
Well, journalism in general has quite a high regard among Palestinians. They're an educated population, they're very media savvy, especially the younger people, and they know really that through the media and journalism, it's been the only way that they've been able to get their story out. Any big story you turned on Al Jazeera Arabic, there was Shireen along with her colleagues. She did the big stories, but she also did those sort of incredible human interest people stories that you see all over Israel-Palestine. So she was very much at the forefront of, breaking news, but also there telling the stories of families, of women, of children, for example, locked up in Israeli prisons, the entire sort of military system that people are living under in the West Bank. And you hear that sort of many younger journalists had grown up watching Shireen and really wanting to be like her.
And you worked for a while as an Al Jazeera correspondent in Gaza. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you faced carrying out your job in the region?
The case of what we've seen with Shireen, while I was, obviously shocked and outraged, the sad reality is I wasn't that surprised by what had happened. Because you see that happening all the time. When I was in Gaza and I lived in the Gaza Strip for 12 months, there were many occasions where you'd be reporting on certain stories inside Gaza and there would be Israeli fire coming from the borders. And I'm not talking about just in a war situation, and I was in Gaza for 2 wars. I'm talking about just a normal day, really, time. I remember one of the first stories I did in Gaza, and it was probably a bit naive of me in hindsight. We went into the buffer zone. This is Palestinian land, but it's under sort of Israeli fire zone. We went in with farmers who were trying to farm their land. We had on our press jackets and flak jackets. And I really didn't think that the Israeli military would fire on us because there was quite a large contingent of journalists accompanying the farmers. But we were on that Palestinian land, and within 5 minutes, we were coming under Israeli fire.
Police are investigating the death of a rare Formosan black bear in central Taiwan. The bear had been wearing a satellite tracking collar, but researchers lost track of the signal last week, prompting a 3-day search. The bear's body was found buried in a wooded area on Monday with the tracking device removed. That has led investigators to suspect human involvement. The bear had a history of entering farms and orchards and taking food, and hunters operated in the area where its body was found. And Formosan black bear is an endangered species which is protected under Taiwanese law. Conservationists believe only a few hundred remain in the wild. Police have appealed for anyone with information about the bear's death to come forward. Taiwan's largest technology exhibition will be held in person again for the first time in 2 years. Computex Taipei was forced to move the expo completely online due to the COVID pandemic. This year's show kicks off on Monday, May 24th, and runs for 3 days. Over 5,000 people have already registered, and companies from over 70 countries will participate in the tech mega event. Every year, Computex attracts top companies like Microsoft and NVIDIA, with keynote speakers sharing their ideas on the future of information technology. This year, we'll also feature a section dedicated to one of the country's most important exports, semiconductors. One local chip maker, TSMC, still commands more than 50% of the global market. Team Taiwan has picked up 3 more medals at this year's Deaflympics in Brazil. A silver and 2 bronzes brought the team total to 10 so far at this year's games for the hard of hearing. In badminton women's doubles, Shen Yanru and Fan Rongyu lost to Malaysia's team in the finals to take the silver. It was a sweet victory for the 2 athletes, though, who both failed to place in the singles competition. Shen and Fan then went on to play each other in the mixed doubles, with Fan and teammate Chen Zhongyi taking the bronze. The 3rd medal of the day came in men's table tennis. Wang Yixiang picked up the bronze in the singles event. This year's Deaflympics will wrap up on Sunday. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we'll leave you with images of a traditional celebration in Kosovo, marking the transition from winter to spring. The main event features folk dancing, playing the zurna instrument, and barbecues. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.